Hello, this is Tyler again. Today's video is about formula auditing. Formula auditing is just a fancy way of saying how can you error check the formulas that you make in your worksheet and also figure out not just errors but remind yourself how they're calculated. It's pretty easy if you have a formula that's just something plus something, but the more complicated your formulas get, then it becomes necessary to use some built-in tools in Excel to help you kind of sleuth out uh, what the input variables are, and also it can help you tell where the data is being used in other formulas. So there's a couple really useful tools, and I'm just have a sheet here that has some, I don't know, various level of complexity formulas in here just to demonstrate. But where you want to go is up here in newer Excel, with this the new ribbon menu system. You go to formulas, and you'll see a little group here called audit formulas. This is where the things that you need are. So first off, hopefully you're familiar enough with formulas to know that when you click on a cell, you can look up here in the formula box, and you'll see what the formula is of that current cell. So one thing right off the bat is it's helpful to click in here, and it'll do something useful for you. It'll color code any inputs that are on the current worksheet. It's kind of tough to see here, but you'll see that C4 is color-coded blue. So let's find C4. C4 happens to be right under here. The reason you can't see it very well is it's behind a worksheet control that I made, but you can see that Excel has gone ahead and highlighted this cell in the color that it's shown in the formula. That is a really useful thing, and I'll show you here why. Let's say you had a simple, I'm just going to plug in some numbers. You had a simple sum which was adding up these three items. You could click on here and you see it's highlighted. So a lot of times you'll stare at a formula, like for example this cell is highlighted, or I'm looking at this formula, and you'll see, oh, here it is up here. But just going to that extra step to click it allows you to see visually on the screen. A better example might even be this. If I hadn't used the sum and instead just added them together myself, here you see there's three inputs, and Excel is coded it blue, green, and purple. You can ignore the colors don't mean anything other than matching them up. So the blue in the formula, you can see blue here, green, magenta, or whatever color that is. And Excel gets pretty good at inventing lots of different colors to use if you have, say, 10 different inputs. So that's really useful. You don't have to rely on just staring at the thing. You can use some color help here. But as things get more complex, what you really want to do is go up to this trace precedents. So a precedent is an input to the current cell. So if you click trace precedents, I'm going to make it a little more easy for you to see. If I was summing up these three, but down below, now what you'll see is each color dot is an input into the current formula, and it's showing you that all these are being pushed into this formula here. And so right away you get a visual representation of what parts of your worksheet are feeding other parts. So let's go up here, for example, and I'm going to use it. Actually, a better example would be down here. So here again, total strength 150. What is this made up of? Base strength and total bonus. Now right away this has helped us here, because without that on here, I might think for a second, oh wait, am I adding these up individually? As soon as I do this, I can visually remind myself, oh no, I'm starting with the base and then I'm totaling up the bonuses. Now the bonuses themselves, I'm going to just do this for ease, are made up of these four together. You'll notice sometimes it's hard to see, but if there's a lot of adjacent cells, it'll combine these here. Oh, actually, it's because it's a sum. So you see it's actually bordered all of these and only used one dot, but you can see that they're all together. Now, if I go the extra step of up here, like we did earlier, you'll see the border a little more clearly. So arrows are great because you can show that precedent. If you press again, this is a really cool feature, it will then show you what the precedents are for those precedents. So in other words, the inputs for this formula here is here, and then you click it again, the input for there is over here. So it's pretty cool. You can just keep on clicking. So here, at some point it'll go crazy, but basically you keep on clicking and it'll show you the precedents. So it may look like a lot here, but it's actually showing you all the inputs into the next level of input and the next level. Now, anytime your arrows get too complex on the screen, that's what this, you've already seen me click it a few times, the remove arrow button here gets rid of everything. So that happens a lot. I'll click through just to see. Sometimes I like to see how far you can go. This, at this point, is not really helpful to anyone, so you just remove it and you can start over. So that's pretty cool. So let's look at that again up here. If you saw one of my other videos where I did a VLOOKUP, this will be kind of interesting to see. So here's a cell, attack strength. How is attack strength calculated? Well, I can look up here and see it's a VLOOKUP, and there's some inputs. I can click here and see that one of these inputs is here, but I don't readily see any other inputs. Then you can hit escape to get back to where you can click the trace precedents. So here we go. We've got, it's showing me that C4, so underneath this worksheet controls an input. That jives with what I see here. And then there's something, when it shows you an input with a little picture or worksheet here, that means it's off this current sheet. It means your input is coming from elsewhere. You can look in your formula, of course, to see where it's coming from. So in this case, it's coming from the unit sheet range A8 to L78. But another thing you can do, and I didn't realize this myself for quite a while, but you put your mouse cursor right over the arrow. It's kind of hard to see because of this black cell here, but if you put it right over the arrow and double click, what it'll tell you is where that's coming from. Now this is extremely useful when your input is coming from a different workbook altogether, and it gives you the full, okay, here's the name of the Excel file, here's the name of the sheet, and here's the range. But out of curiosity, since we're becoming worksheet detectives here, let's actually just go look at this formula. So units A8 to L78. I'm just going to click over there to see. Here's units A8, looks like that cell, to L78. That looks like it's going to here. Now right away, this is, if you're an astute detective, you'll notice that, this is kind of odd that there's more units down here that this isn't currently referencing. I can't remember why I did this at the time. It's quite possible that I made that combat calculator and then later put these unlockable units in here. And for various reasons, I wasn't really using the combat calculator at that point and didn't need to include these. But what we've found out is I probably want to be including these if I want to be able to look them up. And just for sake of demonstrating, if I wanted to look up these Welsh Bowmen, their ID number 73, so I'm going to go back over to this sheet. And I'm going to click here and try to get down here, and sure enough, you can't really, well, I'll take my word for it, it's kind of doing some weird stuff on the menu here, but you can't actually get down that far. And so formula auditing has kind of shown us that, okay, it looks like there might have been an error in the formula, at least in terms of what the intent was. And this warning right here is actually telling that, telling us something to that effect. So I'm going to go back to this unit sheet. If you're bored, of course, I think you've probably learned what you need to know about formula auditing, but I'm just, out of curiosity, I'm going to go over here to this sheet again and trace precedents. Okay, well, clearly there's something coming from elsewhere, so I'm just curious what that comes from. Attack strength. It's 100 plus W8 times 50. I could click in here if I wanted. And you'll fall over here and see it's colored. So I have some sort of mystical wizardry over here that's inputting into the attack skills. A lot of times, I'll do these things for a specific reason, but the beauty of the formula auditing is you come back on a spreadsheet that's quite complex, or maybe a spreadsheet that you didn't build, and you need to figure out how it ticks. And it's just painful, eye-bleedingly painful to just read formula bars. You really need the help of these arrows. Another example, I'm going to go over to a different sheet here. Let's do a little auditing on here. Here you can see here's a basic sum, and it's including these. Now this happens quite a bit where you will get something like this. Actually, I'm going to escape out of there. Just for the sake of doing this, I'm going to put an error into the sheet. I come down here. As a rule of thumb, one thing I do a lot is just, after I've done something, I'll create, oh boy, the colors it's using are quite hard to see, but if you have eagle eyes, actually if I click up here, you'll see that this is a pretty common worksheet error, is people not dragging their sums all the way down. This can happen if you add data later, kind of like in that other example. But formula auditing has just shown us that's an error, very easy to correct, done. So get in the habit of doing auditing on your own stuff as you build it, because that really can end up saving you a lot of pain later where you're doing a calculation, don't realize you've left something out. Finally, I don't know, I'm just kind of clicking around the sheet here. Oh yeah, if you have something that isn't actually used somewhere, or perhaps doesn't have an input, my terminology that I usually use is blue represents an input, so that's something it's not calculated from elsewhere. And you go here and do the trace precedents, it'll give you this message box, and all that's saying is there are no precedents to this. There's no formula that's calculating in. And another thing you can do here though is trace dependence. Oh boy, have we talked about trace dependence? So trace dependence is just the other side of it. It's where are these things used. So in this case, we have a piece of data. I'm going to trace to see where it goes, and it's used in the total bonus calculation. And just like before, if you want to, you can click multiple levels. You can go, where is that used? And then in turn, where is that used? And then in turn, where is that used? So here, we've left a trail of breadcrumbs, and I figure out that attack ratio uses attack strength, which in turn uses the total bonus, which in turn uses this cell here, which was just a manually entered bonus. And finally, I could click again, and it looks like attack ratio is used in attack damage. And then finally, again, this is used to calculate damage. And let's see if it goes any further. Aha, yes, it goes even further, and further, and further. And then eventually, it'll start, I don't know if you can hear it, but it'll give you kind of a dull sounding beep, which means you've reached the end of the chain. So I use trace dependence and trace precedents just all the time. Once you know they're there, you'll use them all the time as well. Thanks for watching. As always, let me know if there's anything you want me to cover, and it's been fun.